Are you concerned about all this corruption being misgendered as conspiracies? Well, don't you worry. Sit back, relax, and join in the conversation as we talk with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. Today, as you can see, I have a very special guest to join us on the podcast. It is no other than Richard Vobes. And today we're going to be putting the world to rights and talking about whatever we can think of to just keep you guys entertained. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's lovely to be on your show.
It's very different, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. It makes a change. I love it when people ask me to go on their show. I don't have to think too much or worry about the upload and all of the normal stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
That we YouTubers have to get up to.
No, that's absolutely.
But I have to say, it's great to see what you're doing, and you're knocking out these shows and coming up with interesting news items. Which is great. And the other one you did the other day about the councils not wanting to record public meetings. I mean,
yes,
that's a bit outrageous, isn't it?
It's it doesn't sit well with me because obviously you know that I'm a grassroots kind of guy, and the fact that they were using the excuse of some people don't want to be on camera. Well, it's a public meeting in a public place.
If you didn't want to be on camera, you wouldn't turn up, would you?
Exactly. And every other council that I know films their public Q&As because it's the only way that a lot of people who can't attend these meetings are actually able to see what goes on. And
well,
so
there must be limited seating as well. So if 100 people, they couldn't get in.
Oh no, I think there's about 30 seats that I can think of. And since obviously what happened with LSB and the filming of that meeting, which is nearly a year ago this month.
That is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. But since then, they have had a good turnout of people coming to ask questions. And so I also find it's quite bizarre that now that they've got the people there, they now want to close down the recording of it. As you said
in your podcast, what have they got to hide?
Yeah. I mean, I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek there, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, presumably the people can ask awkward questions, which sometimes when you get an awkward question, you're able to gloss over it and kind of go, well, that's not so important. But it may well be important to somebody. And if you're seeing the councillors just kind of gloss over what somebody has said, that may never get reported if you haven't filmed it.
Well, this is very true.
Thank you very much.
It is very true. No, it absolutely is, which is why it's important that we try and change that. Because we need transparency.
Well, I think we live in a time where our communications is coming over the internet all the time, more and more people like yourself and me and many others are reporting on things. And in the past, you had to rely on the local newspaper, who may have been there, and a few people who'd turned up. So it's fantastic that that people are actually interested in what's going on in the councils, and B that actually somebody wants to film it and show other people. I think that's so laudable.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Obviously, I would, but yeah, I do. It needs to be shown. We need to expose what's going on. And the only way you're going to do that is like this. And the other point is, they say about, don't want to be on camera. Walk down the high street. You're probably filmed. I can't even think how many times you're filmed per day without your knowledge. So we live in a technocratic, technology-filled world. So get used to it, really.
Well, the thing is, I suppose that's what they want us to do, is get used to being surveilled left, right and centre. And when you go into supermarkets now, I haven't been in a supermarket, it must be about 4 months. I drew the line.
Really?
When the local one to me, which is actually at the rear of my house, started to put on these cameras on the tills and everything. And I just thought,
Sainsbury's have done that.
It's too much. It's too much. I feel like I am a prisoner or I'm under suspicion the minute I walk in. I didn't mind one above the door, just clocking, in case somebody's run out with a telly or something. But and that's a bit more obvious if someone's running out with a 71-inch telly, however big
Yeah.
that is. But now you go in and you just feel like there's somebody got their beady eye on you, like 1984. And I just thought, actually, why am I here anyway? The highly processed foods I don't like. I was tending only to go and buy things like bleach and toilet paper and, those sort of things. But now I go to the little corner shop. I still have to buy the same brands, and maybe a bit more expensive. But at least the guy's not standing there with a camera as soon as I walk in and film me and follow me about with another camera. And
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
so, I think we are. I would like to see less of this surveilling of us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. No, of course. Yeah, I would like to see less, but I just don't know whether we will ever get back to that
Well, I
that
do think,
that
I think the world is going to change, and I think this year and next year is going to be very pivotal in that change. And we will see, we will go through some rather rough, turbulent times, and we're going to see some
mm,
awful things, I think. But I think at the end of it, I'm very optimistic. I'm very
yeah,
optimistic
yeah.
that
You've got to have faith in humanity.
oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, without humanity, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly. We have to start trusting in humanity as well. So no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, also going back to the surveillance thing, I just think that I don't know how to put it into words, but you almost feel like you said, when you've got a police car behind you, you automatically feel guilty.
Mm,
You haven't done anything wrong, and I don't know whether that's part of a conditioning thing where they're trying to just make you think, oh, yeah, don't put a
yeah.
foot wrong, don't put a foot wrong.
Exactly. They're making you
Mm,
more obedient and following the narrative they want and being a good citizen. And have you noted here? But try this then.
what's that?
If when I go into town and go for a walk as often as I can to break up the interviews that I do on my channel and what have you, and being under artificial light and all this, try and get a bit of sunshine. So I go into town and it's very interesting watching how conditioned people are at traffic lights. When they press the button, they wait for the green man, and they wait for all And I've gone, there's nothing coming. I just strode out, crossed the road,
Yeah,
and they're still sat there going, "Oh no, it's not a little green man." They're
mm,
waiting all the time for somebody to give
to
them
tell them,
permission. Yeah,
yeah,
it's okay, you can go now. And I'm not suggesting that people weave in front of moving vehicles, of course, but it does seem that people no longer think for themselves.
no, people want to be told what to do because it takes the thinking out of it.
There was an experiment some years ago, I can't remember where it was, where they took away all of the street furniture for driving. And they discovered that actually, if you took away all the signs that say keep left and turn here and one-way traffic and this roundabout and traffic lights, they actually discovered that people, because they had to concentrate and they had to sort of perceive what the traffic was doing, people drove a lot safer
Yeah,
because they weren't being guided all the time and thinking, oh, yeah, no, it's my right to go. And because it's a green light, not seeing the big lorry that's coming down out of control and hadn't even given it a view. So and when you do go into town and you look at all these posts sticking out of the ground with signs or telegraph poles or 5G or radio, signal
yeah,
stuff and cameras and lights and bleeps and I mean, there's so much. It's so unattractive, and I
mm.
think it affects the psyche of you.
It does because you've also, with all that, you've also got the frequencies that they emit,
Exactly.
which
Yes,
which
they're
has to
all.
go through you, and
It's
that doesn't do you any good at all,
no.
in my humble opinion.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. And we can't go around in Faraday cages walking about. Ladies and
No,
gentlemen, look at the new Faraday cage suit that I've got. Oh, this one comes in grill form.
it makes you wonder if that's actually why they got rid of lead paint, doesn't it? Because
Ah, yeah,
then that stops any frequencies from
absolutely. Yeah,
penetrating the wall.
yeah.
Just a thought I'm throwing out there, peeps.
I think that's a good one. Paint your house in lead
Yeah,
paint and you'll be all right.
Yeah, I reckon so. I reckon so. But
You might
yeah,
die of
also
lead poisoning, but your house will be safe. Can't win everything, can you?
rough with the smooth, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Swings and
Yeah,
roundabouts. But going back to the supermarkets, and I'm glad that you're not using supermarkets because they are just part of the B system.
they
But I
are.
would love to see more farm shops.
Absolutely. It's are the nearest farm shop. I mean, there are other shops, but what I call a genuine farm shop that actually has animals,
Mm.
and in this particular case, they don't slaughter them on site. They obviously go to an abattoir, but they do slaughter their own cows, and then they hack them up, and you see them hacking them up in the butcher's shop, and you don't want to get on the wrong side of the two guys there. They're very friendly, but you don't want to. If he's if he's doing a bit of knife throwing, stay well clear. But they
That's
hack
it.
them up, and okay, so it's not organic. It is grass fed, but it's grass. You don't have to do too
Hmm.
much to grass, and I don't think they
Grass is
use.
okay though. I thought grass is okay. It's when they're on oats and stuff that it's
Oh
not so good.
no, what I mean is to get the grass to grow, they haven't really
Oh,
got to
sorry.
do.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
they haven't got to
Hmm.
do much to get grass growing because luckily here in Sussex there's quite a bit of water comes down, and but yeah, so they don't need too much antibiotics because they're reasonably looked after, and they do raw milk there. Although I actually get my raw milk elsewhere because the raw milk is very popular. These farms that do it when people.
This is unpasteurized milk, yeah.
Here is some that I am drinking for the show. I
Oh,
thought,
well
should I
done.
make myself a cup of coffee or you're on a beer?
I made myself a cherry beer.
Oh, fantastic. Look at that. Is that
Hmm.
homemade?
Nah,
No.
no, it's cheap and cheerful from the local spa shop,
All right, fair enough.
but it's really nice.
You had
No
the
expense.
opportunity then, Chris, to say, "Oh yes, I make my own
Nah.
cherry beer. We have it off." Do you know when I was young, we used to make our own ginger beer. And the great thing
Did
about
you?
making, yeah, and the great thing about ginger beer is in those days you'd had corks in the bottles, and it's quite volatile if you get it
Mm.
wrong. And in the middle of the night, you'd hear these bang, bang, bang on the ceiling from below, as the as the corks would explode. It was
Will
great fun.
explode.
You know, this is raw milk from Old Hall. Oh, I don't want to say now because everyone will order it. Old Hall Dairy up in Norfolk.
Oh, it's in Norfolk, is it?
Yeah, and I
What, and they
order.
deliver it?
They deliver it on their little milk round. Takes them about 5 days to get down here, and a flat EV battery. No, no, they post it. They
Oh, okay.
two first class stamps. No, I can't remember what the minimum order is. The economic way to do it is to get about 12 liters, and it comes in nicely wrapped up in sheep's wool and ice packs, and it's
Okay, yeah.
guaranteed within 48 hours, but it's usually quicker. And you stick them in the freezer when it comes, and then just take them out the day before you need them so they can slowly defrost. And it's raw milk, unpasteurized, unhomogenized, on grass fed, and absolute. And it is so good for you. A lot of people who are lactose intolerant, they're lactose intolerant because they're drinking the pasteurized, homogenized stuff, which has just taken everything good out of the milk.
Yeah,
Cheers.
absolutely. Cheers. See, when I started doing my spiritual diet, probably the back half of last year,
Hmm.
I gave up milk and I went on to almond milk,
Oh,
which I actually quite like.
okay.
But the wife still gets like semi-skimmed, but
Oh,
I have a swig of that and it just tastes.
well, semi-skimmed
Yeah,
is awful.
yeah,
Anyway, skimmed is dreadful,
it's
and
water.
it's water. Exactly. I mean, it's probably good for plants or something. But raw milk, you see, it's got all the nutrients in it and
Mm,
all the bacteria that is good for you because they say, oh, it's got all that bacteria in, but the bacteria, if it's clean and it's not
mm.
hung around for ages, is absolutely essential and very very good for you. And people can be put on raw milk diets on months on end with nothing else and get good healthy, and it cleans up the skin and all sorts of stuff. I've got in fact an interview went out, I think it was today as we record this, on my channel, not to try and promote it or anything, but I did
No, promote away.
Well, it was this lovely dairy from his name's John Cook from dorasdairy.co.uk, and his stuff is organic, and it's grass fed, and again, it's the same sort of thing. And they the thing about people who produce raw milk, these dairies, they really have to work ever so hard, because if you get one incident that makes it into the press or whatever, it becomes a big story if somebody's, if it's not quite right or it's gone off or
Yeah.
something.
Mm.
Whereas you never hear about the people that the millions who've been drinking the horrible processed milk and are getting ill, because it's so common.
Mm. See, there was a couple of, obviously we do the stand in the park. Last year we had a lovely Australian couple come over and join
Mm.
us, and they were saying about how they had their raw milk farm, and how I can't remember if they said they were trying to shut it down or they shut it down, the government,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
because it's
yeah.
because it is really good for you.
I mean, this is the thing, there's so much nonsense. And because one of the problems was that in the old days, and one of the reasons that pasteurization came in, is because people were living on the land, eating raw milk and all of that. Then they moved into the city in the industrial age. And in the city, there was no grass, so you couldn't put cows. So instead, because they couldn't get the milk from the farm to the city quick enough before it went off, because they had no refrigeration and all of that, they started to have herds of cows next to things like breweries, and they would feed the barley and stuff that had been used in the beer to the cows, and it would produce this not quite good quality milk. And then that people would drink that, and it wasn't really good for anybody. And so people said, "Oh, well, we need to do something about it." So then old Louis Pasteur came in and said, "Well, I've got this system of heating a heat temperature thing." And so they started using pasteurization, which was okay because it killed all the nasty bacteria that had formed around these cattle. Were in these sheds, packed in, and they
Mm,
barely ever left. And the only time they left was when they died on their feet in carcasses. It was dreadful.
that's
Um,
horrible.
and so it got this bad name. Then they realized that, you have to pasteurize your milk. Well, that was 100 years ago. And
Mm.
now we've got sterilization, everything's clean, everything's easy to transport, you've got refrigeration. And so there's absolutely no reason why you can't have good quality milk. But talking of farms, it's far better to have smaller farms than these great big,
Oh, absolutely. I'm
massive
dead against
herds.
industrial farming. Each
I,
local farm should, I mean, I know it's an ideal world, but each local farm should provide for their community.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
And that's how it should be.
and this is, I mean, talking to John from Dora's Dairy, and it's a farm really. That's exactly what he said. He said we need to go back to about 6 or 7 local farms around the towns. They don't have to be big farms. He's only got 60 cattle, 60 cows, milking
Mm.
cows, and provide the food for the local area and in season and all the usual good stuff. And that way, you as the punter can go round the farm and look at the quality. And if you think, oh my God, Dave's dreadful farm up the road there is awful, but Pete's farm is lovely, I'll buy from Pete. Then Dave goes, why are they all buying from Pete? Oh, it's because I don't care for my cows and I don't look after it. I better up my standards. And
Yeah.
so, but when you buy stuff from places you do not know, it's a bit weird, isn't it? And the
Yeah.
other thing is, in the old days, do you remember in the old well, you won't be old enough, and neither am I, back in the Middle Ages, when
Definitely not.
you never trust, you got on with people, you'd have meetings with people, but might not trust them 100%. And the food would come out onto the table, all these rich people, and you would have a taster, wouldn't you, in case somebody's trying to
Yes.
poison you. Yet we know they're poisoning us in the supermarkets with all these, I mean, not necessarily in a nefarious way, but just by, and probably in a
Just the
nefarious way.
additives
Just
and
exactly. And we know
mm.
it's not good for us, but we flock in. You just see
It's
them,
because
they flock in.
we were sold into that rubbish lie of convenience.
And if you
When
had a
really it's not convenient.
if you had a taster to taste all the food that you're going to eat before you eat it, and you would actually get a real view of what happens to you, that the taster would be dead probably. And then
Yeah.
you might think twice, oh, actually, I've had this taster for 2 years. He's eaten all this crap and now he's dead. Maybe I won't try it.
Yeah.
But, we'll all sit
It's
there
a
in
bit like
front
the
of the
canary
television.
down the mine as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, that's why I really like that Yucca app. I'm always talking to people about the Yucca app. Have you heard of the Yucca app?
No, I don't know what the Yaka app is. Is it a horrible app that you don't like? You go,
It,
"Ooh, yuck."
it's an app that you can download from Play Store,
Mm,
and you can scan pretty much any food or cosmetic product, and it will give it a rating, and it will go into all the additives which are bad for you and the colorings and stuff, and then you click on that and it will go into why they're bad for you, and it will give you links to the scientific papers. So, like, for example, something like Doritos,
mm,
the powder that they put on them is
mm.
carcinogenic.
Oh, nice. I must get some.
And the same with like shower stuff, like Nivea, things that you would expect are good for your skin.
Yes.
Actually, there's stuff on there that can interrupt your neurotransmitters. That's what I mean, that there's so much
So
stuff that people are unaware of.
this Yucca app that you download and put on your
Hmm.
phone, excuse me, if you turn it on in a supermarket, it must get red hot and blow up, mustn't it?
I'll tell you what, it makes your shopping trip a lot longer
Yeah, I bet it
because you
does.
go, oh, for sake.
Can't buy
I
that.
mean, just take
Can't
a
buy
loaf of
that.
bread. Just take a loaf of bread. It's
Mm,
four ingredients, really, isn't it? It's water,
mm.
flour, salt,
And
sugar,
yeast.
and yeast. Not if you go to a supermarket, because you've got so
All the
many different additives to make it soft and keep
mm.
it fresh longer. And apparently that's why people's jaws are now shrunk, and lots of people have bad issues with their teeth because we're so used to eating soft food now. We
Mm.
don't, we haven't got the jaws. Our mouths are literally shrunk.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, as soon as we just suck
Yeah.
everything. Ooh. I mean, you'll be all right sucking mealworms, so won't you, when we go into what they would
Oh
like us
yeah.
to eat?
Oh, the
We'll just
WEF's
sit there and,
agenda. Mm. But even that, apparently, even those are really bad for you because there's something about them,
mm,
a parasite in them that we can't
deal with.
digest. Yeah,
I mean, if we were supposed to be eating mealworms, I mean, let's face it, hunter-gatherers going around, if you've got to face a great big bison coming towards you and you need half a dozen people, and then there's a choice of worms and slugs and snails and mealworms or whatever, you would just go, well, actually, that's a lot of effort. I'll just eat these. And because we haven't done that, it means that actually that's not really a sensible suggestion. We'd rather take the risk, kill the bison and hack it up and have a lovely, jolly, good old carnivoring meal, which would
yeah.
last you several days, and not have to eat horrible, lovely slugs crunching between your
Unless you live
teeth.
in China.
Well, let's face it, Chinese are a world unto themselves, aren't
Aren't
they?
they just? Aren't they
I mean, they
just?
they built that great big wall.
See, now apparently,
Yeah.
we don't think that's the case. Because if you look at the wall, it's actually facing outwards. And
Oh,
so
is it?
if you know about like the Tartaria, the lost
Mm.
civilization, they reckon that that was built to keep them out.
Oh, well, it doesn't surprise me. And they can jolly well stay out, if
And
you ask
apparently
me.
the wall was used as a trading place so that it would have shops and stalls all the way along it. And that's where people would do their trading. Apparently,
Mm. Who built it?
I
This
believe it was the civilization from the Tartaria.
So I wonder if they had a Tartar app that did the same when they went to the shops and went,
They might
"Oh,
have
you
done, you
can
know.
eat that. That's a nice one. That's a lovely mango. You can have that one. Oh, thanks."
I think they were a lot more advanced than we were led to believe.
Yes.
And you've only got to look at old buildings.
Oh, I mean,
You
yeah,
know,
we can't match it, can we?
we really can't. So it
And we've got
tells
all
you that
these
there's something.
JCBs and all these cranes, and they take forever to do. I mean,
That's it. They use
uh,
frequency,
yeah, and
apparently.
they probably not only that, they probably got them built on time and they've lasted eons.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas we've got schools with this weird concrete now and other buildings that are all falling to bits
Yeah.
from the
I wonder,
60s.
I wonder if that's all part of the. Do you think that's just an unfortunate mistake, or do you think it was designed to fail?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I think that it was, I mean, I think of so many things. I mean, I think we could see potential conspiracies in a lot of things, but ultimately, I think it's cutting corners, like the
Mm.
Grenfell Tower. So we'll just shove some cladding up there. Have you tried to see if it's inflammable? Oh, no, it'll be all right. Won't burn down, will it?
Well,
Hmm.
Terry's just lit a fag, and it's all right.
It's all
Yeah.
right. He stubbed his fag out on it. Yeah.
Right. I
That's,
tell you what, I'd like to talk about
yes.
council tax.
Oh, lovely. You've reminded me, I must write a check.
Yeah.
The check
Yeah.
is don't pay it.
Oh,
Council tax. Yeah, well, tell me where you want to start with that one.
that it's good that more and more people are not paying it, and that people are realizing it's a scam,
Hmm.
and that all the money, isn't it something like 30% of all the money that is gathered up from like your council tax, only 30% is given back to your area?
It is a strange figure, and of course it comes with strings attached.
Hmm.
So you've got to go in with all these net zero things. Um, with the 5G and the little, what are these little mini parks they're now called? Micro parks.
I've not heard of that.
Oh, and if you've seen Rachel Mitchell's Colchester watch, the council watch in Colchester, apparently they've got these what they're calling micro parks. It's part of the council's plan to make the place look really ugly. And so what they do is they have these wooden chairs, and it kind of looks like a sauna that forgot the roof. And you're sitting in this wooden sauna without a roof, and then there's a few tiny little weeds growing out of what are supposed to be a channel of plants, and that's your fauna, you see, and then you're sitting there going, well, this used to be a lovely meadow here at one time, but now there's tarmac
Uh,
and cycle lane going through it. You're just about to have a drink and have another glass of the cyclist goes through the middle of you, all of that nonsense
oh,
next to a
bloody
big
cycle pass.
next to the diesel bus that's now because the electric one blew up, three of them blew up, so they had to bring out a diesel one. So yeah, so council has all these things attached, and it does seem that there is the uglification of the town. I mean, certainly where I'm living, it's becoming very depressing looking at the lack of investment. And
Mm.
when it is invested, I live in a seaside town, which was a sort of Victorian Edwardian town with a pier, and it had a little bit of Art Deco, but mostly these beautiful old buildings that look like a seaside town of that period. And I've been here for 30 something years, and I've watched how these buildings have slowly been pulled down. And then what I would call inner city urban buildings have been put up completely inappropriate for a
Just
seaside town.
concrete blocks.
Concrete, glass, and steel.
Mm.
And they're just, and we have one which is what just won an award of millions of pounds. And it's like this sort of wiggly, it's a tower block with veranda, is that the right word?
Yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah.
balconies going around. And each of these are sort of, it looks like it's melted, and it's the tallest building in the town. How they got it that tall, I don't know. And you can see it from the downs. It's an eyesore. It's horrible. Nobody likes
Mm.
it, apart from
No.
the idiots who spent £1 million on an apartment so they can see right across the sea towards the wind turbines, the ugly
Oh,
wind turbines. That's I don't mean to be moaning. I want to be positive and
no, no,
happy.
no, no. They are ugly. In fact, we went to Wellingborough last weekend,
Mm,
going back to the mixed match of architecture. You
mm,
had beautiful pubs, really old, beautiful red brick thatched pubs, looked like it's in the Cotswolds.
mm.
And then right next to it, you've got concrete. So it's like a cross between Milton Keynes and the Cotswolds. It was just such an awful, awful
Mm.
blend of buildings. Where do they get away with it? This is
Well,
what our money gets wasted on.
I can understand in the 50s, after the war, certain places were bombed and there
Mm,
were buildings that had disappeared and they needed to do something quickly. And I can be forgiving that they had to, replace what looked like gappy teeth everywhere with certain buildings that had had a bomb explosion. So in the 50s, a lot of rather grim buildings went up. But when we got into the 60s and we saw brutalist architecture come in and this sort of very simplification of architecture, but mean, with no embroidering of the windows, no design, no aesthetics to it. And
mm,
then from then we get this very strange CAD. I say CAD as in computer aided design, computer box sort of stuff, where it's as if the architects have been trained. You can't get anything beautiful away. You've got to just use this sort of machinery. There's no creativity in here. It's sort of a bit um, Lego like. And you see
yeah,
the same designs right across the country so that your town becomes bland with every other. One of the great things about England, let's say, or indeed Scotland or Wales, was start with the geology. The geology of the land depicted what building materials you would have. And so down here in Sussex, you had a lot of flint and chalk. And then as you moved into the Weald, a lot of clay and wood. And so you'd have some timber frame
mm,
as well. And up in, say, Shropshire, I used to go up to Shropshire a lot, there was a lot of Elizabethan timber framed houses, those Tudor ones, as you say, with the thatch cottage. And there's still some of those. And one reason to go to different regions would be to see the lovely different styles, like you said in the Cotswolds with the
yeah.
elliptic limestone down there,
It's
and that
beautiful.
beautiful. But when you start having modern architecture just infilling everywhere and it's all the same, you've just stripped out those wonderful characteristics that make people want to go and see those places or desire to live there. And as you say, in that village that you went to, Wellingborough, or wherever it was, it suddenly just becomes like anywhere else. And that bit, I think, is designed.
You do.
I think there has
Mm,
been this sort of blanding, as I think it was what's his name, Betjeman, who said who coined the phrase the uglification of Britain, and I think that's so true. And if you uglify a place and you don't have it uplifting, you lose the spiritual element of it. You lift the aspirational element and the positivity and the joy of looking at places. And you only have to look. I mean, here's the thing: so many of the Victorian utilitarian, say, waterworks, for
yeah.
example, um, are amazing, beautiful. I mean, the only people who would work there was the workers. Obviously, the public didn't go there. Now they open up some of these steam engines with their great big things, and they look lovely. The Giants of Bede, for example, down in East Sussex, beautiful. And these Pallister columns and beautifully with Corinthian whatever they are, scrolls, leaves rather, and all of that stuff. Um, and they're just utility buildings that no one was ever really going to go to. And yet the Victorians did all that. And now, if you go around Milton Keynes and see the boxes, those utilitarian, awful, bland boxes and delivery centers, nothing. If you're working in that for 8 to 12 hours a day doing shift work with
Soul
barely,
destroying.
yeah, you're going to come back exhausted, miserable as sin, and argue with your partner.
Yeah. So what have you found since you've been doing your show? Because obviously you started off as the bald explorer and
Mm,
you would go out and do your things, but now you've been more focused on the crap that's going on these days.
yes.
What's your take on the council now compared to say what it was pre 2020? Has your
Oh,
opinions
definitely.
changed drastically?
I think the biggest thing that I have realized is that and I was like everybody else. I was busy doing what I was doing, Bald Explorer, walking around the countryside, admiring England, but watching how England was being dumbed down, as I've explained
Mm,
with the uglification. But I was just blindly paying the council tax, not really giving it much thought, thinking that the council, that people were. Well, I didn't really give it any thought at all, to be honest. I just assumed that they were doing good stuff and they were being in doing stuff for our favor. But in the last 14 months doing this and realizing there was an agenda that had been unfolding very slowly, I started to realize exactly what is going on. And you go down the rabbit hole, of course, and you see all that. And you realize that half the people in the council haven't a bloody clue themselves, but they're following particularly the woke agenda and the net zero agenda, and they're trying to
definitely.
do all of this stuff. And you realize just how brain dead they are. They don't realize the fraud that they are executing on people with what they do. They all believe that the money seems to be going to them locally, even though it isn't, and it's all got strings attached. And what the biggest thing for me is how anti-human all these
Mm,
policies that they put out, and it's as if they do not think of the consequences of the things they're putting their hands up and saying, yeah, all in favor, yeah, that's it, and not aware really of what the impact is on ordinary everyday people who are busy
exactly.
trying to bring up families and find something to be thankful for.
No, exactly. And that's why I will never vote for anything regarding net zero because
No,
it's
well,
just pie.
firstly, it's a lie anyway. I mean,
Mm,
man-made global warming is a load of old nonsense, and
it
CO2 is
is.
so important to us, and they're trying to eradicate that. And even if you could go along with the lie and say, okay, look, okay, fair enough, that's what you think. All right, what's your policy? And if the policy was simply that we just don't want to emit too much, which we're not doing anyway, we could just carry on. But all
Mm,
know, we only knock out 1% of the world's CO2, whatever it is, compared to these other countries. And yet we still have to go, no, 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 let's just penalize everybody, force everybody down in one system. And not only that, we'll have this crazy idea of having solar panels on all the farms so you can't farm. And then we'll also endorse the dimming of the skies so that the sun
mm,
can't get through the cloud to heat the solar panels that's supposed to bloody give us the electricity they think that we all need.
mm.
So it's a stupid policy. Everything
Well,
about it is
I
stupid.
think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it was anti-human
Mm.
because the whole climate change net zero thing is all to pretty much criminalize human behavior.
Yes, and we're all
And
still
and that is basically what they're trying to do.
and like we said in the supermarkets, you're made to feel guilty.
Mm,
And the thing is, we got plenty of oil, and the oil isn't really making that much difference. And we could carry on using that. I mean, we know that people like Telsa was onto free energy and things like that, which we, 100 years ago we could be using now if it weren't for the big cartels and the monopolies and all of that. And actually, we wouldn't have this issue because we
that's
wouldn't
right.
be we wouldn't be polluted. I mean, when somebody says such an like, I don't believe in man-made global warming, or and they'll say, well, aren't you, are you not an environmentalist? Yes, of course I don't want plastics in the sea. We have plastics for so many things that we don't really need. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to do a lot of recycling. You take the beer bottles back and get, tuppence on
Money
them or
for it, yeah.
yeah. And we don't see any of those old things that we used to do. And we just get this, oh no, it's the economy of scale now. We've got to manufacture to the nth degree for all the capitalists. So you've got tons of plastic, loads of waste. I mean, food waste is huge.
Mm.
And I mean, not that anybody really seriously wants the results of the supermarket at the end of the day that's been sitting there wilting, even with the highly processed crap in it, because it's been in the fridge for about 20 years and only
Yeah.
just seen the day alive.
A
It's
6 month old apple covered in wax.
exactly.
Nice.
It's just put
Yeah.
out on the day before the mold starts. And actually, probably if you ate the mold, bit of natural penicillin, it would be more good for you than all the other crap that they've shoved in it.
Yeah, that's probably quite a true statement. Yeah, that probably is quite a true statement. And the thing is, people are going to have to start being less picky because there is a food shortage coming.
Mm,
I mean,
absolutely.
I've spoken to Mark Byford. I think you know of Mark
I want to
Byford.
get, yeah, I'm trying to get Mark on the show. I know he said he will come on the show, and tell
Okay,
us about what the farmers are doing.
yeah, they're doing wonderful things, and you know, the art project which he's involved in, where it's all about educating people from how your food starts off in the ground and all the way through the process to being on your plate. And
Mm.
that's all about local communities. And is an amazing bloke and is so passionate about what he's doing. You know, that's a really good thing to get involved in. So yeah, if you can get him on your show, that
Yeah,
would be great.
I've spoken to him and he said he will. It's just that I just need to, find the time and get him to find the time,
Yeah,
um, and we'll have him on. And farming. It's funny thing is, I mean, I don't do a huge amount of farming on the show, which is a shame because I love that whole thing. I read books from the 1930s, funnily enough, about old farms and how they used to do it. Um, and it just speaks to me millions. Now,
mm,
maybe in my past life, that's what I did. And if I wasn't doing this, if I didn't feel the urgency of doing what I'm doing, I would. Well, I'm Julia and I, my partner, do desperately want to buy some land and do something, but we want to do something not just for ourselves, but for a bigger project.
community.
Yeah, and I think
No, that's
that's
cool.
where we're going. But farming is so important, and reminding people what food is, because my worry is when the supermarkets run out of food, which they will, people who have no idea where to get their food from because they always get it from the supermarket. They have no idea what happened. These days, people don't even know how to cook, and that's the worry. And the other thing is people don't sit round the table as a family and talk. Because
Yeah.
if you sit round the table as a family and talk, the food is on front of you. You're talking. You might, compliment the chef, whoever cooked it, mum, dad, whatever. And you might be trying, oh, what's that you've got there? Does that, oh, this is a kumquat. Oh, I've never heard of a kumquat, whatever, not that that's a local thing. It's a nice sprout. Oh, is it? I think when these days people sit in front of the telly or on their computer or with their headphones on and they do this.
Mm.
They don't know what the hell's going in their mouth. It's being cooked in a
It's
microwave.
almost hypnotic.
Absolutely.
They're not consciously eating.
They're
They're
just
just
putting fuel into what they think is fuel into their body. They're not tasting it. They have, people's tastes now are so killed off with all these highly spicy, artificial flavorings. People don't know the nuances of real
mm,
fresh food. And if you get a veg box or something, say from Riverfoods, just to illustrate one, but other places are available, which is organic, okay, a bit more expensive, and you start getting to eat real natural food. At first, you might go, "Oh, there's no flavor," because you're used to having artificial crap in it. But the nuances, once you've got rid of that old style of food, the food tastes so much better. And my God, if you have a piece of, say, beef, if you're a meat eater, and you have it an organic or near to organic grass-fed piece of beef from a farm shop, as opposed to what is very worryingly looking like nuclear fallout in the supermarket, and you
stitched
have
together with glue.
stitched together, yeah. If you have start having real meat, you notice the difference. B, you don't need half the sauces and gravies and things to hide it because it actually tastes really nice,
Mm.
and it cooks better. But the goodness of it, you don't need. People are eating, say, 3 meals a day and pigging in between. You only need one meal a day. You might have a little
Mm.
bit of some nuts or an apple or something, banana, whatever, in the middle of the day. But one meal a day will keep you going if you're eating nutritious, proper food. And
Absolutely. We do overeat. We definitely overeat. Well, I definitely overeat.
and
I have started doing the fasting, so I'll have my last meal at about 4:30 in the afternoon,
wow,
and then I
okay, that's
won't
good.
eat anything until
3 o'clock the
say 10
next
or
day.
no, probably 10 or 11
Yeah,
the
that's
next
good.
morning. So about 17 hours.
And
And
are
apparently
you?
17 hours is enough for your cells to start regenerating.
Yeah, no, that sounds very good. And what do you eat? Are you eating bread?
I do. eat bread because I do love bread, but I don't eat a huge amount of bread.
Is it supermarket bread?
It's freshly baked bread from the bakery.
Right. Okay. I'll let you off.
So it's a little bit, it's probably still got a certain amount of, but
Mm.
it's better than
Yeah. No.
the
At
stuff
least
you would
it's
get off
not
the shelf.
the Chorley wood process, which is that sort of mother's pride type stuff. That's just white
Mm.
squishy pap.
No, I
That,
like a good crust, and it's usually like
mm,
seeded loaf.
yeah. That gives the illusion that there's something good in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all up here.
It's all psychology.
It
But
is.
yes, I mean, bread, I gave up bread. I mean, I do eat bread from time to time, but I gave up bread for a month, about 2 or 3 years ago now. And within that month, I lost weight rapidly. And I mean, I didn't realize I was overweight, and I was overweight, but not massive. I was just a bit more fleshed out. Julia thought I was going to disappear down the plug hole. Um, and then I realized actually, bread is incredibly fattening.
Oh, it is, and it's not just fattening. It's also apparently really bad for giving you inflammation.
Right.
So
So,
on your joints and oh,
yeah.
apparently, yeah. And that's the same with pasta and anything carby and starchy is bad for your inflammation.
Yes, no, I totally agree. So I gave that up and chocolate bars, sweets, biscuits. Now, I do
Mm.
rarely have to me they're now a very luxurious treat. Packet of Bourbons, I might have a couple.
Yeah.
But I won't. Whereas before, a packet of Bourbons, it's gone by the end of the day, just like two moreish and what have you. It's so easy to
Mm,
do, but it is discipline, and you take
it
back
is.
control of your own desires and things, and you just. I mean, the best thing to do is not buy the bloody stuff. That's
Yeah.
the discipline. Is just, and when I mean, if you've got kids, it's difficult because you're buying stuff because the kids nag you. But once the kids left home, to me, it was so much easier, and I could go in when I did go in the supermarkets. I could go, do I really need this? And mostly the answer was no. And now in a supermarket, I don't need any of it. Thank you very much.
No, I do like chocolate. I have to say that is my guilty pleasure, chocolate. I've cut down on it a lot, but I do like chocolate. So what do you do as a bread substitute then? Because that is a sandwich is like the English staple
Mm,
lunch, isn't it? So
mm.
what do you find?
Well, I eat a lot of nuts, Brazil nuts, mixed nuts, some peanuts in red skins and things like that. I try not to eat too many of the salted peanuts, although that is my guilty pleasure. But because they're cooked in sunflower, or they got sunflower oil, which of course is
Mm,
a real nasty. Um, when occasionally we make, I get rye flour from, oh, I can't remember the name now. It's heritage flour. So it's grown in the old-fashioned way. So it's a heritage rye grain, and I get the rye flour and mix that with water and maybe a dash of salt or something, and make a dough, roll it out, put it into the oven, and cook it, and it makes a nice crisp bread. And on that, I might have some cheese. But very often, I just have a nugget of cheese, good quality cheese, if I can get good quality cheese. Um, uh, Not so much fruit, actually, as we're all told 5 a day, but actually that's another urban myth.
yeah.
And and,
Some
and
people say that plants are bad for you.
well, I mean, I have the chap I interviewed the other day, John Cook from Dora's Dairy, is carnivore, and I think I've got somebody coming on the show to talk about the advantages of a carnivore diet.
Mm,
And I mean, I know people who that's all they have. They have no
mm.
veg at all.
That's what Jordan Peterson does as well.
Does he? Well, he's
Mm.
welcome to it. Um, and but it is. I don't know. Jordan Peterson is a strange one for me.
Does he?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about him now. I used to think he was really good, and now
What
I'm a
made you
bit.
change your mind?
Well, for one thing, he, funnily enough, out of the blue, for no reason that I could see, tweeted one of my videos, and the next day it got. I was given a strike.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I know it's not his fault on that, but it's just whoever was watching him had a look at what I was doing and obviously said something to YouTube and said, "Oh, you can't put that out." I mean, that may have been coincidence if you believe in coincidences, of course. And then there's the arc that he has, this the answer to the WEF. And Sonia Poulton did a very interesting video about him, his background, and the people who support all of this. And really, you wouldn't want to be in the same room with half of these people.
Oh,
So,
really?
and I just have this theory now. I come to the conclusion, seeing as I'm shadow banned and people are being thrown off, subscribers of mine are being thrown off, and they don't know it. You know, they just say, "Oh, I
Mm.
haven't had a notification for you." No, there's a reason for that. Um, and I have a feeling that anybody who's very, very popular on any of these channels, or anybody who's doing what we do and talk about the things and has large audiences, I'm
Mm.
very dubious now because my channel escalated and now it's sort of flatlined. I don't. I mean, I only care because not enough people are hearing the interviews, really. I'm not worried about the monologues and stuff because it's just my opinion. And that's, you can ignore my opinion. I just want people to think. And I'm not worried about the revenue coming in. But I I just think it's very unfair that people who have something to say genuinely seem to be curtailed.
Yeah.
Um, and then it seems to me those people who apparently are doing very successfully, on our side may not be. I don't know. It just seems odd to
Mm.
me.
I have to say that the amount of subscribers I get saying YouTube have just deleted my comment. YouTube
Mm.
have just deleted my comment. I've literally just watched my comment go. I typed it and boom. So
I get that. I get that.
you
And
get that as well, do you?
I get it all the time, and people email me and they say, "Why did you delete my comment?" I said, "Well, I didn't know, didn't see it. I haven't got time to sit there for 300-400 comments coming in, going, no, delete that, delete that."
Mm.
I do have to go in and approve a load. Do you do that?
Yeah, I do. And I genuinely make it my mission. In fact, a couple of days ago, I uploaded a video about the Brendan Kavanagh, the pianist thing.
Oh
And
yes,
that, and within like a day, that hit over 200,000 views. And I
yeah,
literally spent 3 hours replying or hearting every comment
it's
because I
hard.
think it is very difficult, especially you. I wouldn't be able to do it on your scale, but I can just about do it. But I just think it's a nice touch if
Mm,
people are sending me
death
comments
threats.
yeah, that I acknowledge them.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'll confess, I started out with that because we always used to do that on the small thing because we would get like 20 comments or something. But sometimes when it's 900 comments in there, A, just
Mm,
haven't got time to read them, and B, trying to reply to them, and in the end, you're so busy with the email. I mean, it's bad enough emails
mm,
coming in, and um, one of the ironies is people send me videos, and the thing here is that I'll get, say, I don't know, 30 emails with videos in it. And I'm so busy saying, thank you very much for sending me that email. Yeah, I'll go and have a look at it, blah, blah, blah. That by the time I've done 30 emails answering all of them, I haven't looked at any of the
no.
videos that they've sent me. And I'm just going, oh, I'm a bit goggled-eyed now. I can't sit in front of the screen anymore. So I barely get to see all the stuff. And I do say to people, please send me a URL to a web page about the subject because I can take that in and scan it
Mm.
visually
At your
better
own leisure.
than watching a video. The irony is, of course,
Yeah,
I chuck out so much video content myself, but that's because I'm in the game,
yeah,
of
yeah. That
producing
is
stuff.
true. But it's hard to keep up with you, I have to say.
Do I don't expect
How
people to,
far ahead are you in your scheduling?
2 years. No, usually, up until this month, I mean, it does happen from time to time, but usually an interview would be recorded. I classically do them about 1 o'clock. I schedule in. So my morning would be Julia comes around in the morning and I do a podcast called The Naked Englishman. I do that every day. which is at nakedenglishman.co.uk. It's just a behind the scenes really of me and I just hold a recorder and I just sort of go, oh, I'm just putting the washing in the washing machine now. It's a bit, homely, but I
Hmm.
sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll rehearse it on there. Then I sit and do my monologue and I get that up. Then Julia pops round and I'll do admin with her and we'll do diary stuff and sometimes go down into the town to do posting or something, whatever. And then she'll pop off to pick up her son from playgroup at 12. Then I'm preparing for my first interview, which I've scheduled in at 1 o'clock. And then sometimes I'll have another one, which will be usually 4 o'clock, something like that. And at the moment, I'm rammed this month, I think, for pretty much every day with 2 interviews a day. So then and I only put one interview out. So then you've got loads of them. So I've got about 4 or 5 behind. But
Right. Okay.
I try to keep the weekends as free as possible. But then inevitably somebody says, any chance I could do an interview on your show? I can tell you about, how teeth extraction will save the world. And you go, oh, that sounds very good. I'll have it. Yes, take your front molars, whatever they are, and the world will be saved. Right, come on the show then. And I don't have time to do much research and stuff. It's a bit fly on the thing. And I've only twice had to not put them out.
Oh,
Um,
really?
because I thought it was inappropriate or it just didn't work or whatever. I have got one
Okay.
coming up. I won't say whom it is. And I think the audience will be very small for it because they may not fully understand everything. And it does, I want to do the best job I can. I mean, I put one out the other day with a guy who was really interesting, but the sound was awful. And it
Oh,
wasn't my fault.
really?
He was sitting in a cafe, and he didn't realize
Mm.
because we don't hear in the same way that you make videos and I make videos, and you're aware of the audio. And when you're on location and you're sitting in a cafe and you can hear the banging, the cooking, and then the coffee machine coming on with that and all of that, you and
Order
I,
64.
it's, we would be aware of it. But
Yeah.
somebody who's not in that industry would just go,
Just
well,
don't think about it.
yeah, it's nice and quiet on my laptop, and those microphones are just their design, omnidirectional to pick up everything.
Mm.
And so it was appalling sound. And I did say, is there anything? He said, well, I don't have any Wi-Fi on the boat where I live. So well, what can you do? We'll press
No,
on.
that's it. See,
But
that's the thing that people don't realize that you can get away with not so good video footage,
mm,
but bad audio,
that's
that switches people off straight away.
and that is the key. Absolutely,
Mm.
you've hit it there, and people don't realize that. And I've been on professional shoots where somebody will turn up and they've got the microphone on the top of the camera and it's 10, 12 feet away. And I say to them, how are you capturing the sound? Oh, I'm just getting on the camera. I just think, oh God, it's going to
And
sound awful.
and the thing is, it doesn't take a lot. I mean,
It's a
this
nice
microphone that
fluffy camera.
yeah, this microphone that I'm using, it was probably about 15 quid, and it's the one that attaches to my DSLR.
Yeah. And it working really well.
But it sounds all right. If it's close enough to you,
Yes,
it's great. So
absolutely.
so it
Yeah.
doesn't cost a lot to have good audio.
But it's something that people just don't think about because
Mm.
cameras have the audio built in and they, think, oh yeah. And then they'll go and do the sexy depth of field thing by zooming in, but being a mile away. And they're zoomed in and they've got, very sort of narrow depth of field. So that if you move like this, you're out of focus. And it looks very,
Yeah,
it looks very
very
sexy,
cinematic.
but you can't hear a bloody word they're saying because they've
Yeah.
put a little. And the radio mics now are so cheap
Oh
compared
yeah,
to when I
definitely.
first started out, where they're like $1,000 and you're going, oh my God, I've really got to invest in all this gear. This gear is so good these days. There's no excuse.
No, that's absolutely right. Right, I want to take it down a dark road now.
Okay.
We're going down the dark route. So, sexualization of children in schools
Hmm.
and the Waterstone books. Have you heard about the books that they sell in the Waterstones?
No, I haven't.
About the oh yeah, there's
Water
yeah,
Waterstone books. I'm going to look that up whilst you're talking. Tell me more.
okay. They've got books in there aimed at like 3 plus, and It's basically cartoon porn. I've
I'm
done
going
a
to tell.
couple of I've done a couple of books videos on it, but it seems to be the thing now, and it also seems to be happening in schools where the material that these young kids are seeing is so inappropriate.
I'm going to see if I can get this to come up on the screen. Oh, here we go.
There
On
you
my.
go.
So I've just typed in Waterstone books, cartoon porn, male porn star, Waterstones, manga diary of a male. I mean, excuse me?
Yeah, there are
Porn
some.
panic, sex and censorship. Oh, that might be a proper book. I'm just trying to think. What are the
I'm just trying to think of some of the titles. Like there's one, the gay pride one, the rainbow flag thing.
Oh, hang on, I'm scared. Oh, down here. Let's have a look. Here we go. Let's open that up in another tab and have
Let's
a
see if
Granddad's Pride. Harry Woodgate, Waterstones, children's book prize winner.
why do children need to know about? Do you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
pure indoctrination.
That is awful. That is
But
just
some of these books, I can't remember some of the titles. I'll get slandered for not knowing what they are.
mm.
But there's like two boys in a bed touching each other.
Don't be shy. Give it a try. That I was told that was what a teacher said to the class of 10-year-olds about masturbation.
Really?
Don't be shy. Give it a try. Obviously, not in the classroom, presumably, in the toilets with your mates and or at
Behind the
home
bike sheds.
behind the bike sheds or possibly in the headmaster's study so
Mm,
he can have a look. Um, it's I mean, the fact that we're talking about this is preposterous, really, in my mind, that anything like that, any right-minded person, teacher, would
mm,
even entertain the idea of doing it. And this, to me, starts to get into that thing that you have with people who caused atrocities, let's say in the war, for example, and they turn around and say, "Well, I was only following orders."
yeah,
And if you use the excuse, "I was only following orders," it means that whatever somebody has told you to do, no matter how immoral and how disgusting and how dreadful, you've just kind of separated yourself from it and carried it out. To me, you're just as guilty. And I think the teachers are extremely guilty if they are teaching children how to masturbate in a classroom or telling them that they can be different genders or any of that. And I think parents should be approaching them, putting them on notice, and making them personally liable for their actions. And
absolutely 100%. I mean, I've got a couple of friends, Jeff Mealing and Aaron Leaves, and they are so on this. They're always doing outreaches in London. They done one a couple of weeks ago, actually last weekend, I think, and it was aired over in America. So people are waking up to this, but I just do think that this is such a big problem now, such a big problem. Even down to like some of the clothes. I saw a little girl wearing a t-shirt saying you can look, but you can't touch across here. She didn't
right,
look any older than 10.
right.
So part of me is thinking, what the bloody hell is the parent doing?
Mm. The trouble is, the parents themselves have been so brainwashed into this culture themselves, and they're having kids at a younger age because they've been sexualized. I mean, so they don't even know that they're doing something different. My generation, and I am a couple of years older than you, probably.
Only a couple.
Well, I know you're in your 70s and I'm nearly in my 80s. But I mean, in my generation, I mean, you just wouldn't have even been a thing. Well, it wouldn't have been a thing, but it would have. You wouldn't have even dreamt it up. And if somebody had gone in and said in a parents teachers thing, "Oh, this is what we're going to teach." I mean, we were talking about the birds and the bees. It was one lesson, and it was literally what insects do, or and it was
Mm.
highly embarrassing. Got out the way at school. Nobody, because we all knew as kids what went on because the seniors above us, they would tell us. That was
I remember having to put a condom on the end of a broomstick at school, but I would have been 15 or 16. or something of that age.
Can you
But
imagine that?
we're talking about three upwards now.
Yes, that's true. I
Talking
know
about,
it is
you know,
bad. You've had 10 children and you've put that condom on the broomstick every time. All right, love, I'll just put this on here.
yeah.
We're now safe. It's I don't know what's I did it like the we'll try it one more. I'll put two on the broomstick handle and now
Perhaps
let's do
that's
it.
where the phrase "stick a broom up my arse and I'll sweep the floor if you like." Perhaps that's where that comes from.
But
Maybe
I
just
mean
a thought.
it is a thought. It's not a particularly nice one. But
No, it's not. But I do think we are in an upside down world, and I do
we
think
are.
we're in a satanic world.
And we do have to push back. I mean, people will slate me because they often do for no other reason than it's me. But they may slate me because sometimes I appear to make light of things by making jokes and things. Because
You
if we
have
don't,
to.
you've got to cope with this and look at it, on a level thing rather than just being, oh my God, it's dreadful. What can go? We're all going to die, blah, blah, blah. Because otherwise, you're never going to do anything.
Yeah,
And we do have to push back and we do have to call it out and we have to show how absurd it is. Because,
absolutely.
when you've got fat, ugly, beer gutted, bearded blokes in their 50s winning beauty pageants because they've put on a dress against
Or swimming
very
contests.
exactly those sort of things and nobody's going, well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? What
I
kind of
know
world are we in?
what happened to the feminist movement? Now they're happy to have male females telling them what to do. It's like you
It,
can't
it
make this up.
the pendulum has swung far too far to the other side, and it can't come back enough to balance everything out.
No.
Um,
But apparently, before the end of every civilization,
mm,
the breakdown of every, like the Romans and stuff, gender played a big role. There was two things. There was gender issues, and there was ridiculous, silly laws made up, which is kind of mirroring where we're at today with all these statutes, all ridiculous. Just
mm,
take the COVID lockdown
yeah,
shenanigans, complete and so farcical. And
and that
so I do think we're on the verge of a breakdown,
mm.
but it's up to us which way it goes.
Well, I think we're there. I do think we're there, and I think we are going to see this break away. We'll see the new world come out of this, like what is it that comes? A phoenix
And the ashes.
out of the ashes. And a lot of people will, as much as we're trying to make people aware of the great harms that have happened, there will be a lot of people who cannot, you could show them everything right in their face, and you could
Yeah.
have your Klaus Schwab saying, "Yes, we are trying to kill you. Yes, honestly, we really are. We are. Look, I've got a knife. I'm going to stick it in your belly. There, I see. I've killed you. Fantastic." And they still wouldn't believe it. They go, "Oh yeah, there's a knife in my belly, and you've poisoned the food. You've poisoned the air. There's fluoride in the water. You've taken away all my money. I've got nothing, and I'm not very happy. And now you've stuck a knife in me. But I still love you, and I still respect you,
Don't
Klaus."
they call that like Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to Stockholm ever again. Not that I've ever. No, but you're quite right. Yeah. Is it
Yeah.
Stockholm and Waterman? Oh no, that was they were banned, weren't they? Not banned.
No, no, but that's terrible. It really is terrible. But I think it comes down to the fact that some people just they can't face the fact that everything that they
Hmm.
thought to be real is a
Right.
lie.
Yeah. I mean,
It just pushed them over the edge.
it is a big thing to come to terms with, isn't it? And we are living in that day and age where in the past you could say, well, who shot JR? And you could sort of go, well, was it Matey, whatever his name was, or was it the CIA? Oh, don't be ridiculous, it wouldn't be. But you would have this one argument about it, or
Mm,
moon landings to say, did we or didn't
mm.
we? Or did the twin towers come, was that an inside job? You could have those sort of debate, whereas now when you see somebody and you sort of go, actually the world is upside down and let me tell you why, and then you've got this list of about 400 things and you tell everyone and they just go, oh, shut up,
Mm.
because they
We're in your bloody
cannot.
tin foil hat, are we?
Exactly. Mind you, tinfoil hat, could actually protect you from the EMFs if it's thick
You
enough.
could do, yeah. Although aluminium to the brain's not so good.
Well,
But
there
I
you
have
are.
to
You see.
say, I actually saw a clip going back to the JFK thing.
Mm,
I saw a clip. I wish I could find it again.
mm,
And it was the theory that the person who shot him was actually a CIA agent,
mm.
and he was
Of the
the
car.
driver of the car. And you see him turn around and go like that. And then the
Wow.
next minute you see the mate's head go like that.
Well,
So
we'll all be
I just
looking at
thought,
that 1963 footage now to see and realize that he had a great big Tommy gun in the end. And was going,
I think it was a pistol, but there is footage of that clip
is
of
there?
him turning around going like that.
Yeah. Blimey.
It's amazing to think how much we've been lied to as a nation.
It's funny because I think in the same clip, after the gun went off, a car stopped and a bloke got out and looked at his tire and he thought, oh, bloody hell. I'll have to change that then.
Yeah, you
Meanwhile, the
bastards.
president's lying there with half his head missing. And it's like, I don't know what this blood's doing on there. Must have driven over a
But that's
hedgehog.
the other thing. But that's the other thing, though, that makes you realise that all these assassinations, sorry, in the
Mm,
past, were all from the government, because now we live in a time where if there's ever been any justification for those kind of things to happen, it's nowadays when you look at how
mm.
dystopian the world is, but nothing happens.
Yes, you do think there are plenty of people in the public eye who have said some rather nasty things and are doing rather grim things. And I won't mention them individually, but you know who they are.
Hmm.
Some of them that may have taken us to war at certain times as prime ministers, that really and truly could be, with the help of some crosshairs, could be resolved, those problems that these people are
Hmm.
continuing. And yet none of that happens. And that has surprised me that that has not happened because sometimes they're not that protected. And
No.
but maybe it does happen. And then, they seem to have a never ending supply of lookalikes that are being put up.
Well, I was going to say, if you believe in like the white hats and whatnot, then a lot of or Q, then they say that a lot of these people are already dead
Hmm.
and they are actors. And I do believe I have seen in person some of these silicone masks and
Uh, it-
how realistic they are and how they're fantastic to, bloody expensive. Because I love all
well,
that stuff anyway, because of my horror film type
yes. Oh,
passion.
are you into horror films?
They're the easiest films to make.
Well, that'd be true. You mentioned Q, and for a long time I couldn't quite understand what they were talking about because every time people said that, I kept thinking of Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q in
Oh,
James
I
Bond.
see.
And they kept saying, no, no, Q said this, or that we found this from Q. And I kept thinking, what are you on about? So it's amazing
Mm.
how ignorant one can be. And if there's
Yeah.
anyone going to be ignorant, it'll be me. And
Or me.
I have no qualms in laughing at myself and my ignorance and people correcting me because I make so many mistakes after
Don't
all.
we all? Don't we all? So, moving on to the future, then,
Yeah.
are there any particular guests that you would, if you had a bucket list, are there any particular guests that you would like to have on?
I would love to do a show with Mark Stein. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that he would be interesting. Um,
Have you've done Neil Oliver, haven't you?
I haven't. I'd like to do one in person with him. I'd love to do a stage event with him.
Right. Okay.
I do have his phone number, but he doesn't answer to me anymore. He's
No.
he's moved on. He's got some other friends now, um, which is such a shame. I'm so low of the low. Who else? There's, do you know what I find the most interesting is not so much those people with big platforms who people know about. I actually find those people who nobody knows about. They've got small audiences or they're doing some amazing work,
Hmm.
and then you get them on the show and they reveal what they're doing, a bit like the guy I did with the dairy and stuff. And you just find a rapport. I did a chap today. It'll go out in a couple of days who makes pyramids
Okay.
Full scale Giza size pyramids for your bedroom. You need a big bedroom, obviously.
I was going to say full size.
He doesn't make the full size. They're just frames. They are
Hmm.
frames, and you meditate in them. And he talks about the energy and all of that.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Had a really interesting, engaging conversation with him about energy and all of those sort of things on the spiritual side of things. And these people don't get enough airtime, or people don't hear about them, and they're doing amazing work. And there's plenty of, people like, well, not so much like me, because I never intended to end up doing what I'm
Hmm.
doing, but plenty of these very people who actually know what they're talking about when they're talking about these things, who've done things. But obviously they're all on Rumble and Odyssey, but they still have relatively large audiences, and
Hmm.
they can take you down the rabbit hole and tell you the intricacies and remember all the names of every Luciferian that ever walked the earth, and which ones are lizards and which ones are Satanists and all of this, and who's cardinal so and so. And I'm not, I mean, they're great, but people can find them. I'm interested
Yeah.
in those that have rebuilt a Telsa piece of equipment and is actually,
Yeah.
solving problems and doing good stuff. They're the people I really enjoy talking to because they're unknown. So
Yeah, that's right. I shared a guest that you had on, David. I've forgotten his last name, and he's the old gentleman in his 80s, and he's the one who used the copper
oh
symbols
yes, lovely
and the
bloke, wasn't
frequency.
he?
Yeah, he's lovely. Yeah. So
Mad
those,
as
so
mad
those,
as a box
yeah,
of frogs, but lovely, but really nice,
but
really
yeah, like
nice
you
guy.
say, they are the kind of people that make
Yeah,
interesting talks.
and
And like the
they're
retired policeman that I had on,
right. And because
those
they've
kind
got
of
that
people.
wealth, that they've come from the old world as well. They know how things used to be,
That's
and they
right.
can see the problems. And they, when you, and that is one thing, that when you look back at your life and you realize certain things have brought you to where you are now and you didn't realize it at the time. I think that's fascinating. And so those people who've got that sort of experience, I mean, it's just, I find people very interesting, even though I've done a lot of talking in your show. But in my show, I tend to sort of shut up and let them do most of it, unless I can't understand a word they're saying, which does happen.
Yeah, no, that does happen, especially if they've got an accent.
Yes.
But no.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're good. I think we've had a wonderful
I've enjoyed it,
podcast.
Chris.
I've enjoyed it because it's just been a friendly chat. It hasn't been, it was never meant to be like, oh. So
No,
yeah,
well, yeah. I
I
mean,
am.
I can't finish my sentence. Uh,
Go on.
no. I've enjoyed it. It's been great. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time because I know how busy you are. And so I very much do appreciate it.
It's
So
nice. It's
I'm
nice to feel. Sorry, it's nice to
go
feel
on.
like we've just been in the pub. You with your cherry beer, and me
Yeah.
with a glass of milk, and we've just sort of,
Warm
like so
milk now.
much warm. Mine's gone. It's probably congealing inside me.
It's
But
got a
yeah,
cheese.
feel like we put the world to rights, and we can go and rest easy now for 10 minutes.
No, absolutely. So thank you so much. And I look forward to watching some more of your content as well.
Thank
But for
you.
now, folks, this has been a fantastic podcast with the amazing Richard Vobes. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Bye bye.